Hey guys, welcome back. We are looking at Chapter 11, Section 3, Alexander Hamilton and the Federalist Party. Some background. We've already covered George Washington and the New Republic and what occurred during Washington's presidency. We discussed at the end of his presidency, he gave a couple warnings in his farewell address. He really wanted Americans to be aware of the division that could grow out of formation and connection to political parties during this formative years of the new republic. The Federalist Party was one of the parties that appeared during the ratification process for the U.S. Constitution. If you think back to that process of ratification, the Federalist Papers were written. Two big supporters that helped draft those papers were James Madison and Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton emerged as one of the Federalist Party's most influential leaders. Some background on Hamilton: he was born in the West Indies and raised on the island of St. Croix in the Caribbean. He was a very skilled writer, and those skills allowed him to gain a scholarship to King's College in New York. At the time, understand that scholarship basically meant that somebody was going to sponsor your further education. They were going to pay for it, and that's what he was able to do because of how good of a writer he was. During the Revolutionary War, he served as an aide-de-camp to General George Washington, and this basically means that he was an assistant to Washington. He took care of things for him, delivered messages from Washington to his generals, took care of all the little details so Washington could focus on leading the war effort for the colonists. And this image just, would have shown him helping Washington out. Gives you a sense. They had a very close relationship as the war went on. Washington really started to trust Hamilton as an advisor, which is later going to pay off in his appointment to Secretary of Treasury, as we saw during Washington's time as president. Hamilton's views on human nature they were shaped during his wartime experiences. He really felt that most people were selfish, that they were going to act in their own best interest. He really distrusted a system of government that gave too much power to the common people, or as he referred to it, the mob. He felt that this trust in commoners' ability to govern themselves would lead to instability. And he really used the French Revolution as an example of this, which we'll talk about. His views on government: he believed that the best people should be running the country. And a lot of times for him, the best meant the most wealthy, because they were the most educated, or they had the most opportunity to become educated. Those who own the country ought to govern it, he felt. So again, who has the money? Who are the elites within society? He favored a strong national government. The rights of the states were not as important as national power and unity. We talked about during the Revolutionary War, a lot of people really felt that the state they were from was their home country. And then the difficulty that led to for the Articles of Confederation and then the Constitutional Convention, people were really looking at what's in the best interest of my state versus, hey, we're a smaller unit within this bigger part, and we have to be thinking about what's best for the whole as well. Hamilton agreed with these views, and he wanted a great and powerful nation. He saw this as an opportunity to, the United States is this infant country, but it's something that can grow and be a world leader and economic power. His views on the economy: in order to develop a strong nation, he felt a strong economy was needed. So things like manufacturing and business which is totally opposite of how Jefferson saw things with his nation of farmers or agrarian society, which we'll talk about when we get to Jefferson. He wanted to use the federal government to promote trade, business, manufacturing, and infrastructure. He felt that the national debt needed to be paid. So the United States had borrowed a lot of money from France, which is going to lead to some of their troubles within their government. They borrowed a lot of money from the Dutch, and he presented a plan to pay for the war debt quickly in order to not essentially lose the respect of the nations that they borrowed the money from. Southern states, they disliked his plan. A lot of those states had paid off their war debt, and they didn't feel it was their responsibility to pay for the debt to the northern states. Hamilton is going to use a compromise to save his plan. It comes to be known as the dinner table bargain, and it had to do with the location of the national capital. There was 10 cities presented as potential locations for the capital. Most of those 10 were located in the northern colonies, the former northern colonies, and a lot of residents of the southern states really felt that if the capital was in the northern half of the country, there would be a lot of disconnect with how they wouldn't be able to have input on the government like they were wanting to. So Jefferson basically organized this dinner meeting between Hamilton and Madison and laid it out there that if Hamilton would support the capital being located in a southern state, Madison would be able to get the votes necessary to pass Hamilton's economic plan and the absorption of the state debt into a national debt. So this became known as the dinner table bargain. Hamilton promised to support the building of the Capitol in the South, which is what happened with it being constructed on the banks of the Potomac River. The National Bank. Hamilton wanted to establish a national bank to help collect taxes and keep government funds safe. Opponents felt the Constitution didn't give permission for a national bank. Congress could only exercise the powers specifically given to it by the Constitution. This side was looking at things from a strict interpretation of the Constitution. Hamilton, on the other hand, supported a loose or broad interpretation of the Constitution. He used the elastic clause as support for his argument. And if we remember back to our government unit, the Congress has the power to make all laws which are necessary and proper for carrying out its listed powers. So the elasticity within the Constitution, interpreting it in a broad way, was how Hamilton was acting. And he was able to connect this because collecting taxes was one of those listed powers within the Constitution. So therefore, Congress had the power to set up this bank. The Bank of the United States was established in 1791, and it did help the nation's economy grow and prosper, but it would be a continuing argument throughout the terms of the next 7 presidents. His views on Great Britain and France. Hamilton was an early supporter of the French Revolution. He hoped it would lead to a free and good government in France. Enthusiasm cooled, though, as the chaos in France increased. France experienced this event known as the Reign of Terror, which is when a lot of people started to be executed through the use of the guillotine and other implements. In general, Federalists sided with Great Britain when they went to war with France. So during the time period of the French Revolution, they're also trying to fight a war with Great Britain. Hamilton favored Great Britain because he hoped the U.S. would emulate or copy or mimic the country one day as a powerful and respected nation. A lot of people saw his efforts to follow through with this emulation of Britain as that he wanted this royalty within government. He had that elitist mindset that the wealthy people should run the nation. And this really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, especially Thomas Jefferson and those within the Republican Party, which we'll talk about next time. So thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you again.